Good day. In this part of the lecture series, Professor Solzoloi has established the relationship of various isms to education. As foundations in education, isms emphasized how relevant are they to teachers and students as school curriculums are being developed. Going back to the fundamentals of educating a person, we will look at the very nature of human persons as beings capable of education. What makes human persons distinct from other creatures is their capacity to realize their nature as rational animals. Animals, like this dog, are limited and contained in their nature. They manifest in their nature as brutes. On the other hand, humans, like you, live wondering about their nature, seeking in vain to characterize and define it. This implies that they are aware of their nature as rational animals, in as much as they are capable of thinking, unlike the dog, a brute, that is not. Human persons are aware of their reality and life in the world, next to other creatures. And, of course, with other fellow humans. They wonder how to live, find the content and meaning of life, and ask for the right character to relate with their nature and environment. Consequently, human persons are being compelled to choose and decide. They are aware of this. They are compelled to do the right and the good as rational animals that are capable of thinking. This natural capacity to ask for what is right and good is embedded in the soul of man. His rational nature, his psyche, which is contrary to his animal nature, that is limited and compounded in space and time. The reason for his tendency to error as a fallible being. Understanding this nature of human persons that is fallible, one has to educate his soul to control the animal nature in him. The best way to do that is formal education that we all understand as schooling. Human persons need education, given that man compels himself to know what is right and good. A step to minimize his tendency to error. However, this concept of educating is contested. This leaves us with the question, what is the right way to educate a child? There is a conflicting concern between doctrines of liberalism and fundamentalism, socio-cultural constituencies, and interest groups. This brings us to the problem of conflicting perceptions. Evidently, there are different, often opposed to each other, ideas about education. This affects professional development and progress. There is a range of incomparable education possibilities given that different opinions constantly emerge. This directs us now to the task of professional and educational theory, which is to shake the established educational prejudices of trainee teachers to help them determine the best way of operating or the best practice in educating the child, as Carr argued. In this way, we will find progress in education, but limited to understanding the effectiveness of the existing practices that may set aside considerable good practices based on rational criteria. Considerably, one must have a sensible account as he develops a curriculum. The account of the needs of education following the established one that is unrestricted to reasonable pluralism and indiscriminate relativism. In this way, we presuppose learning. Learning, as we understand, is the acquisition of skills, capacities, dispositions, or qualities not previously possessed. The development of already given qualities or potentials. As we presuppose that in education there is learning, we also presuppose that there are learners. The subject of education. Educators may ask what benefits we would expect to derive from education. What agency do we have? This brings us to the previous concern of opening the current practice in education to various principles that indiscriminate relative ideas. That, consequently, brought educational philosophers and theorists to adopt a variety of approaches to educate, inasmuch as to educate is to foster learning. The children requires a venue to learn, an agency where learning takes place, a formal education venue, the school, but without setting aside informal schooling. In the venue of learning, teachers are tasked to educate. They serve as managers of resources, the educational shepherds. Meanwhile, we ask, what is teaching? This qualifies that teaching requires an intention to get pupils to learn and do what was intended to learn. A way to determine if the applied pedagogy was successful. But we have to take note that learning is not always from the teacher, even though people generally learn when they are taught. But then, again, we ask, what sort of thing might a teacher do which would justify a pupil's claim that they were taught and learned from? A school then could offer programmed learning techniques to be employed by their teachers. These learning techniques are mined from the principles provided in various philosophies. These philosophies provide justifications and relevant ideas on how one must be educated, the isms of education. Alongside, let us not set aside attitudes of students to learning and their varied level of understanding. These constitute the role of philosophy in the development of curriculum in education. Thanks for watching. If you have comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to share them in the comment section in this Google Classroom entry.